Hello, everybody. Welcome or welcome back to Try, Adjust, Thrive. I'm your host, Oksana Varas, and let's get right into it. So, first things first, if you're new here, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you who are not new to the podcast, also thank you for tuning in. Love you guys. It's nice to chat right now. So today I want to just have a really chill, informal episode where I just talk about authenticity and being true to yourself despite maybe not going through the best chapter or period in your life. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I myself have unintentionally fallen into a toxic positivity trap. And I didn't mean to, but essentially that's where I ended up. And so I'm just gonna like give you a little story time right now, okay? So long story short, my ex-boyfriend cheated on me, and it's fine. I'm fine. The way I said that sounds like I'm so not fine, but genuinely I've like made peace with it. And we weren't even together for that long, but that doesn't mean that it didn't, one, still hurt, because I've become very mindful of the people that I let into my life these days because of getting burned in the past, as many of us have, it's just part of growing up. And so I really didn't expect this from this person. And that is what really stung. To be quite honest, and I mentioned it in my last episode, I was kind of starting to feel a little lukewarm about the relationship in itself. And that is a topic for another episode, but I might dive into it a little bit today. Who knows where we'll end up, because I have no script today. But regardless, although I was starting to feel like him and I might not be the right pair in the long run, and I started realizing that like me and this person are not endgame, because you can tell, like it doesn't take that long to figure it out. I started figuring it out. Even though I started realizing that, I still loved this person and I still built a connection and an attachment to him, and he still became, in a very short amount of time, like one of my best friends. And so although I was already starting to realize, I don't think that this person and I are like ultimately right for each other in the long run, betrayal still hurts regardless of whether that person was meant to stay in your life or not. But so I kind of just instinctually attached myself to the part of the breakup where I knew that we had an expiration date anyway, and I just really focused my energy on not worrying too much about the fact that he did betray me, because I was like, well, you would have broken up with him if he didn't. And so that really caused me to almost like shut off or mute any feelings of betrayal and pain and feelings of being hurt. And over the past half a year, I've really been focusing so much energy on being like the baddest bitch version of myself, and really just believing that the sky is the limit and believing in myself more than I ever have, and just focusing on me and knowing that, what's not meant for you is not meant for you. And I've done so much personal growth in that respect. So when this all went down and when I found out that he cheated on me and we broke up, I was like, okay, so what? Like, rejection is just redirection. Like he was obviously not meant to be in your life, and your instincts were correct. And lo and behold, like, there you go. If anything, he made your life easier because you don't have to do the breaking up anymore. But in my focusing on that side of things and not really allowing myself to feel the full range of emotions that I had to feel, I realize now that I was stifling a part of myself that was in pain. And because hindsight is 2020, looking back on the past month, I now realize that wow, I was focusing so much energy on like being the best version of myself right after I was wounded. So, although it was really necessary for me to step into a place of strength and step into, one might say, their divine feminine, my divine feminine, and that is something that I've been exploring like high key since this breakup. So, let me just preface that there's been a lot of good and some bad along this journey. But although I'm experiencing all of these positive things, I'm still like, okay, why do I feel wounded when this person was not even like meant for me? And that has been kind of perplexing for me because it's made me feel emotionally weak. It's made me feel slightly codependent, even though I know that I'm not codependent. I was never codependent on him, but I do feel a sense of disappointment in myself for not being quote unquote strong enough to just navigate this breakup with ease and just completely be my best self. And so that's what I really want to talk about today because it's being your best self is such a buzzword, right? And at this point, I don't even fucking know what that means anymore. Like, I'm honestly almost tired of hearing, be your best self, because that looks different every day. First things first. Second of all, who's to say that you being emotionally vulnerable and perhaps laying in bed all day listening to Radiohead, I don't know if anyone can relate, but that's what I do when I'm really, really, really depressed, is just like I shut out the world and I lay in bed over the covers with a blankie on top of me, hugging a pillow, listening to Radiohead, staring off into the void. I did not do this during this breakup, mind you. I was not that broken from this breakup in order to get to that point. But that, if you wanted a picture of Oksana in her most just like self-indulgently depressed state, that is it. Or walking in the rain, still listening to Radiohead. Just always listening to Radiohead if I'm feeling depressed. Okay, so I digress. Essentially, what I'm saying is that who's to say that really depressed version of yourself is not the best version of yourself that day? And I'm really starting to embrace that we go through cycles as human beings and we go through seasons. And sometimes we're just not going to feel 100%. And like, I'm really working on detaching myself from the toxic be your best self, like hustle culture that has permeated throughout our society, our culture. And let me just say, a lot of parts of this culture are really motivating and they're really, really beneficial to anyone who's trying to level up and work on themselves and better themselves. So do not take this the wrong way. Do not think that I'm saying, oh yeah, like just stop subscribing to bettering yourself, because that's not what I mean at all. However, it is so critical that we create space for ourselves to just embrace the suck. Like, honestly, wholeheartedly, just unapologetically embracing the fact that sometimes life is just not that enjoyable. And what I find is that immediately when I do this, I finally feel a sense of relief. And I realize that this past month, I've been really trying to hold it together to the point where I became stagnant. I wasn't making episodes. When I did make episodes, girly pop, they were whack. Like, maybe you guys might not think so because I'm very, very critical of myself. But I watched them back and I was like, girl, you sound nuts. And apart from that, I couldn't even form complete sentences without stopping and starting. Like, it was like, I don't know if anybody is a chakra person in this community, but it was like my throat chakra was just completely blocked. It felt like I just couldn't form complete thoughts. I convinced myself that I was quite literally stupid during this time. I'm really like, you guys might be thinking to yourselves, oh my God, Oksana, like, are you okay on the other end of this podcast? But I just want you guys to hear all of this because I'm not the only one who feels this way sometimes. And it's seldom talked about on the internet. And more people are becoming more authentic. So thank God. And I realized that I was just trying to mask so much on this podcast, especially like the last 2 episodes I made, where I was just trying to hold it together and not really holding it together, and just feeling lost and feeling unsettled. And I just, like, I feel like I have reached a massive breaking point in this concept of being performative. I'm so fucking tired of being performative, putting on a fake face just to seem desirable, to seem interesting, to seem like I have something worthy of saying. And that has thwarted me again and again from making, honestly, potentially really good podcast episodes, because I'm like, I'm being too vulnerable. People are going to cringe. People are not going to vibe with this energy. And that is just self-limiting belief central. And also the fact that vulnerability is a scary thing, especially when you're posting it quite literally for the entire world to hear. And even if I don't have many listeners or viewers, that fear is still there. I'm actually going to go on a little side tangent right now, because I have a perfect example of this. So I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I constantly think about what it must be like to be famous. Not from a place of envy, but from a place of curiosity, because I personally don't think I would want to be famous, because that sounds exhausting. Imagine just like not having any privacy. Imagine people constantly stopping you in the middle of the street, like not even being able to just like go to get your like Starbucks or go to the grocery store or literally anywhere without someone recognizing you. And while at first I'm sure it's really, really cool, because who doesn't want to be recognized for their hard work? However, at the same time, I can imagine that it's just like, it takes away a certain level of your humanity, and it makes you feel less than just like a pure organic human. And that is just my speculation, because I am not famous. However, I feel like that's how I would feel, especially after watching interview after interview of my personally favorite celebrities, whatever, we're keeping that in there. I just, so many people talk about this. So many people who are famous talk about how being famous sucks and it ruined their life. So I have a point to this. Long story short, yesterday, I met my first famous person, and it was really cool. And I did not know what to do with myself. So I don't know if you guys watch Orange is the New Black, but I was just out in the streets of Manhattan, bopping around on the clock at work, and Constance Schulman, who portrayed Erica Jones in the TV show, was just at the same crosswalk as me. And this was huge for me, because I'm one of those people who like literally misses shooting stars all the time, who doesn't see the famous people. Like every time I've gone on a trip to New York, it's like my friends spot the famous person. I'm like, where are they? And they're like, oh my God, you just missed them. It just always happens. And recently I saw my first shooting star, and yesterday I saw my first television star. So I think that this is kind of a sign that I am in alignment right now. And I'm just deciding that that is why I'm finally kind of experiencing these things. But long story short, because I have all these preconceived notions about what it must be like to be famous, I literally didn't know how to interact with her. And I was like, fuck, I'm doing the thing that literally famous people hate, where I'm just like not knowing how to, just be a normal person. And that's all they want, is to just, that's like all anybody wants, is to be treated like a normal human being. And I was like, oh my God, excuse me, I'm so sorry to bother you. Are you Constance Schulman? Were you in Orange is the New Black? And she was like, she like hesitated, and she was like, yeah, I was. And I was like, oh no, she doesn't want to be spoken to. And all I wanted for myself in that moment was to just simply behave like a normal person, and just say something along the lines of, you are such a wonderful actress. It was a pleasure meeting you. I hope you have a nice day. But instead, I blankly stare for a moment, and then finally words come in my mouth and I say again, after already saying it, I'm so sorry to bother you. Have a good day. And then I walked away. And that was it. And she said, thanks, you too. And this is kind of how it goes for me often. I am not smooth, especially when I want to be smooth. Sometimes I'm smooth when I'm not trying to be. But anyway, long story short, so this entire spiel, I promise I have a point here. So the reason that I wanted to share this was because, one, you guys are my friends and I want to tell you guys cool things that happen in my life. And that's like the main reason. I didn't really have to go that in depth because my point could have been easily made without sharing this anecdote. However, now you guys know I met my first famous person. But apart from that reasoning, also, this is a very, very long-winded way of me saying that, I think that the key to being vulnerable is to just feel welcomed, to be organic. And that is something that people who are being perceived constantly must struggle with. Because I literally have like maybe 20 listeners who are like loyal, and I feel like I'm putting myself under a microscope. And it's nobody else's fault. It's literally my own doing. Because the reality that we create in our heads is the reality that we exist in the physical realm, right? So all that being said, that is just my really, really, really long-winded way of saying that I am relinquishing that expectation of myself. I am no longer putting so much pressure on myself to front for you guys because, quite honestly, it is just not sustainable. I'm so tired of making like 2 episodes and then not making an episode for a month because I'm overthinking how I look. I'm overthinking what I talk about. I'm overthinking how educational my content is. I'm overthinking how valuable in general my content is, when honestly, at the end of the day, all I want to do is make videos and podcast episodes for you guys. That's literally it. I just want to share my story and I want to share my life experiences because they are collectively understood experiences that other people can relate to. And I find that vulnerability and being open about your life with others makes other people feel safer, makes other people feel more validated, makes other people just feel more connected. And in a world where it can oftentimes feel difficult to feel connected, that is like the only thing that I want this podcast to create, is like a sense of camaraderie, of connection, of just openness and vulnerability. And I'm not saying like I'm going to be crying on every single episode. So continue to tune in, please. Please do. But what I kind of have come to terms with is the fact that I am enough literally how I am. Like, as I am right now. There are 7 billion people on this planet, and I guarantee there's at least a cute chunk of that that, despite me not having the most intellectually driven content every single week, will tune in because they, 1, like my vibes, they, 2, still think I have smart things to say because, everyone has smart things to say, but also because I'm worthy of love. And it's kind of difficult to just say that out loud because one would like to believe that the girl who makes the podcast episodes for friends about self-love already has unwavering self-love. But if that was true, then I would probably be an alien because none of us always feel self-loving. And that brings me to the next thing that I really want to address, which is you can do both at the same time in every aspect of life. You can feel self-love while also feeling insecure. You can feel confident while also being terrified of shining your light. You can feel like you're incredibly talented while also feeling like you have such a long journey and road ahead of you, and there's so many things that you don't know. And oftentimes I feel like our society and culture can just be so objective and goal driven that we forget that when we achieve goals, we often don't feel the same sense of satisfaction that we expected to feel, because it's about the journey of reaching those goals that really is fulfilling. Once you reach the goal, you think that it's going to make you feel like a better version of yourself. You think it's going to make you feel more whole. You think it's going to make you feel like you've leveled up. But in all honesty, I think most of us can agree that when we reach a certain goal or level of accolade, it doesn't make us feel better about ourselves. It might for the short term, but in the long term, we oftentimes ask ourselves, well, why don't I feel more alive? Why don't I feel like my life is better? Because at the end of the day, materialism, even if it's materialism gained through hard work and really proving yourself, at the end of the day, it's still materialism, and that does not bring true intrinsic self-worth and self-love. And the only thing that we can really do to consistently have that in our lives is to practice self-love, even when we feel like we don't deserve it. And I might even argue, especially when we feel like we don't deserve it. And these are all things that I've spoken about in the past. So if you guys think that I sound like a broken record, so be it. I understand. But I think that these things can't be spoken about enough. And we are constantly learning and relearning how to love ourselves, because as we progress through life, our challenges get more difficult. We expand outside of our comfort zones again and again, and we are constantly testing our ability to believe in ourselves and our ability to love ourselves and our ability to be at peace with ourselves and who we are, even on the days where we feel like we did everything wrong. Because at the end of the day, we're still a human being. So the question is, how do we love ourselves when we are struggling to feel good about ourselves? How do we love ourselves when life is not going right? How do we love ourselves when we feel rejected and somebody just really bruised our egos or hurt our feelings? How do we maintain a sense of intrinsic self-love and self-worth when life isn't going our way? So this is like the $1 million question of the month for me, and I've been doing a lot of reflecting on it and a lot of contemplating, to the point where I'm like, girl, why is this even important to you anymore? But this is just where my mind goes all the time. It's just like, I literally think about morals, and I think about emotions, and I think about like I get to a point where I'm over intellectualizing emotions. And maybe it's because I studied acting. Maybe it's just because I'm a highly empathetic person, but how do we do it? What I've come to terms with over the past month is that it's not always possible. And just 2 days ago, I was on the phone with my mom, and I was just like, Mom, I feel depressed right now. And she was like, why? I was like, I'm stressed about life. I'm stressed about career stuff. I don't feel like I'm enough at all right now. I feel like I'm literally so disposable right now in this moment. And I was so monotone when I was saying it. I didn't even feel hurt. I just felt numb. I was just like, I just feel hopeless right now. And not only did I experience these feelings, but on top of that, as somebody who does practice gratitude and constantly works on their mental health and self-love, I was getting frustrated with myself because the higher self part of me was like, girl, you know better than to get this low. You know that this isn't going to do anything for you. But it was like, I was just in this state of pure and utter numbness that I was like, who cares? I should care right now, but I don't. And that was so painful because you know how people say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference? To feel indifferent about your own life, even though this also lasted for like a week, and it's because I kept stifling my emotions instead of allowing myself to feel them. But regardless, it could have lasted for a month. It could have lasted for a year. The feeling of indifference and complete and utter just going through the motions and not really having anything that sparks something inside of you to ground yourself, that is so painful. It is such a painful experience. And to anybody listening or watching who has experienced that or is experiencing it right now, just know that in this space, you are understood. And I welcome you to just let go. Let go of those emotions. Allow yourself to just stop restricting yourself from feeling how much it sucks. And if you can, cry about it. Because what happened to me on the phone with my mom, I just started to cry. And because I was finally articulating all of the things that were permeating in the back of my head for a week. And it sucked to say out loud so much because, as said, I've come such a long and far way from the version of myself that used to constantly be that depressed. I've developed such a strong sense of self-trust and self-love that when I said those things out loud to my mom, I was just like, oh my God, like this hurts. Like this literally, like this hurts to feel this way. I'm experiencing emotional pain. And what do you do when you get a scrape on your knee or when you like injure yourself in any way, shape, or form? You tend to the wound, or else it gets worse, or else it gets infected. But what we do with our emotions, because especially those of us who are like within their 20s or above, we weren't raised in an emotionally intelligent society. We are finally really becoming more emotionally intelligent ourselves as adults. But the fact of the matter is that most of us were conditioned to step on those emotions, to not let them get to us. And let me preface, there are times when it is necessary and it is appropriate for us to just like take a step back and be like, okay, I'm not going to let these emotions get the better of me. I'm not going to give them the time of day. But there are other times where you like they are banging your door down. Like there is no avoiding those emotions. And if you don't open the door and invite those emotions in for some coffee and Danishes, they are not leaving. And they might break your door. And then they might break a window. And then you have a huge mess to clean up. So by me crying on the phone to my mom, I finally experienced an emotional release that I didn't realize that I needed to feel, because I was just like, just give in to these emotions. Allow yourself to feel worthless right now. Allow yourself to feel hurt. Allow yourself to feel like you have nothing to offer, because we're not sitting in those emotions. By letting yourself cry about it, or it doesn't have to be cry, like maybe you need to just like go and do some kickboxing. Everyone expresses their emotions differently, but like I cry it out. I personally cry it out. Sometimes I need to do something more physical and I might go for like a run, because I don't run unless I'm sad, honestly. But I needed to cry it out. And once I did, I just like laid there, like just on my bed right behind me. I was on the phone with my mom. I was just like laying horizontally on the bed in a really awkward position. As a mother, she was just like, how do I support my child right now, who is a grown adult, but like she is still my child. She's still my baby. And like, how do I support her? How do I give her words of encouragement when she's feeling really, really defeated right now? And I was like, honestly, Mom, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I love you. And like, it's just hard. And like, I'm saying all this through tears, and I'm just like, I'm just going through a rough patch, and I'm just navigating a lot of feelings all at once. But that emotional release started something. It created an open space for me to just be a fully rounded human being. And I was just trying way too hard to be this really cutesy, like live, laugh, lovey version of myself that I was not in the space to be. And so I cried out, and I still don't feel that much better. And then later on, I have a phone call with my best friend, and she was having an even worse day than me. And that kind of like kicked my little booty into gear. It didn't make me invalidate myself, but it reminded me that, like, damn, we're all going through it sometimes. And you guys know, like, being there for others helps you be there for yourself. There's this song in a musical called Avenue Q. It's a show with puppets, and they have this song, and the lyrics are, when you help others, you're really helping yourself. And so I'm on this phone call with my best friend, and now I'm being the supportive energy, and I'm allowing myself to create space for her. And I guess what I'm saying by all this is that we need to really, really allow ourselves to feel not okay. Because if your best friend comes to you and they're going through a rough day, are you going to tell them to shut up? I sure as hell hope not. And if you do, then stop. No, you are literally going to be like, tell me everything. What is on your mind? What is going on? You're not going to invalidate them. You're going to open your arms with love and curiosity and affection, and you're going to be there for the person that matters to you. So the question is, why do some of us find it so difficult to be there for ourselves if that's exactly what we would do for a best friend? And I think the answer, it comes down once again to intrinsic self-love. How self-loving are we being in the moment? Because it's not enough to just say we love ourselves. Our actions need to reflect that and not contradict that. And I think in the adult world, that can be so much more confusing to navigate, because we have to equally be strong and be resilient while also not letting ourselves become robots. Because at the end of the day, when we were little kids, we saw adults as these superheroes, and we thought that they were like capable of doing anything, and they never got sad, and they never got upset or hurt or lonely or all of the negative emotions. But the fact of the matter is that we are still little kids, and we are just in adult bodies, and we know more things, and we have experienced more life, but we still have emotions. We still have days where we literally can do nothing but the bare minimum. We still have days where autopilot is the only answer to getting through the day. And doing inner child healing and getting to know your childhood self and being there for them, parenting yourself as an adult, it's such a paradox, because so much of it feels like I need to be the parent for myself that I needed when I was a kid. Like, I need to be the version of myself that my childhood self always dreamed of being. So sometimes we put this unnecessary pressure on ourselves to not be vulnerable. But I have just decided recently, after this whole month, to start leaning in to like allowing my inner child and allowing my current self to just invite all versions of myself. Because you know what my inner child used to do when she was really, really down in the dumps? She would sit at a piano and she would sing. And sometimes she would sing until she cried. Other times, she just felt better. Sometimes she would do arts and crafts. Honestly, I had so many creative outlets that allowed me to feel better when I was a kid, because it wasn't complicated. I was like, I'm sad. I'm going to go sing a sad song because that's how I feel. That it's as simple as that. Isn't that crazy? Isn't it nuts how as adults we feel the need to mask so much of just our organic selves when it could be such a gift to feel negative emotions sometimes, because those negative emotions, and I'm not talking about like you need to feel bad in order to feel good. Like that is true, but that's not even the point that I'm making. Like negative emotions inform so much of our human experience. If you're an artist, this particularly applies to you, but this applies to everybody. If you're feeling sad and you don't want to feel sad, that like you are literally, and this is something that I have to tell myself, we are stifling possibly an incredibly creative moment, because who doesn't love to just cry to a sad song sometimes? And in this world of being your best self, your highest self, we oftentimes feel this pressure to never be sad, and that's just so unrealistic. And some of us are better at it than others. But let me just say, once again, in this space, you can be whatever you want to be, and you can feel whatever type of way you want to feel. We are here to work through all of the aspects of being a human being, not just force ourselves to become the most picture perfect, idealized versions of ourselves, because that is not interesting, that is not authentic, that keeps us from growing. And I don't want to live that way, because I've tried it in the past and I don't grow as much as a person when I do that. And I'm really, really concerned with growing in all aspects of myself, and not just masquerading as some silly little marionette doll version of yourself, because that's just so unrealistic and it's just so uninteresting. Like, who wants to be a doll? We all of us saw Barbie. We like, and you know what? Maybe this entire rough patch that I've gone through can be summed up in Billie Eilish's and Phineas's "What Was I Made For?" Like that has literally been the vibes in my brain for the past week until yesterday. And y'all, it's okay. To like summarize everything that I've said into one sentence, it's okay. It's okay to just be exactly where you're at. You're supposed to be where you're at. If you weren't meant to be where you are at right now, you would be somewhere else. And ultimately, we don't work through our emotional blockages until we have the tools, or we're reminded of the tools to exit that uncomfortable state. And we're all always growing, and we're constantly evolving, and we're constantly just doing this crazy thing called life. And that is all I have for today, guys. I have been behind the mic for about an hour now, and it has been really, really, honestly, so nice to speak this way to you guys. Let me know how you felt about this episode. Truly, if you listened, please reach out to me and give me your impression. Did you like this type of episode? Do you want more content like this? Did you feel like what I put out felt validating? Did it feel comforting? Did it feel inspiring? Because like I said, I've just had enough of pretending to be artificial when I am organic. And all of you are organic as well. All right, guys. So yeah, reach out to me. Tell me what you thought of this episode. If you liked today's episode, share it with someone you know and love. Please, please share it with the world. Share it so that others can get these bad words. So others can get these positive, loving vibes. And also, as always, please like, subscribe, follow, do all the things, whatever streaming platform you are viewing this or listening to this on. And lastly, as always, be kind to yourself, even when it's like not as easy to. All right, guys, I love you so much. Mwah. Have a good week.